Life can change in an instant. For many wheelchair users, the struggle to push forward is a daily challenge.
After years of development and countless prototypes, we created Rib Grips, the revolutionary wheelchair hand rim covers with built-in ribs for ultimate grip and comfort.
No more slick surfaces, no more heat burns, just pure, reliable grip. Rib Grips, empowering you to push forward with ease. Rib Grips, get a grip on your freedom. Discover the difference. Visit ribgrips.com and use promo code GRIP today. You just found the perfect product that helps with staying cool during hot summer runs. No more gross warm water. Stay cool with this product from Gear Handle. This hydration tube cover helps keep your water cool and easily accessible. Stay hydrated during those long summer runs or even delay from freezing in the winter. Plus, they're compatible with various brands of water bladders and come in various colors. Visit gearhandle.com and use promo code H2O today.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Silent Witness, the cold case true crime podcast here in Waco, Texas, hosted by Christina.
Hello.
And Erica. Okay, we're back into part 2
of Marianne Wilkinson.
Marianne. And you left us on a cliffhanger last week, and I was
did.
a little not
you were
super
mad at
stoked
me.
on
You
that.
wouldn't speak to me all week. I'm kidding. Okay. So let me review.
All right,
Just
where are we at?
So let's review last week's episode. Marianne Wilkinson
Yes, ma'am.
was a 68-year-old loving, kind Mimi.
Sweet grandma, yes.
Who was spending a quiet evening at home. This was on December 9th, 2007. Right as Christmas was rolling in.
Mm-hmm.
Marianne was the ultimate crafter decorator, so her house was ready to go for the holidays. They had just finished watching a rare win of from the Cowboys. They won over Detroit.
Rare. Yes.
Well, back then it was. I don't know about now, but
continues. So it was a beautiful evening. Christmas was in the air.
Mm-hmm. Dawn and Marianne settled in for a relaxing evening at home, watching TV, had dinner. It was around 8 p.m. and there was an unexpected doorbell ring. Marianne went to answer the door and was immediately shot multiple times. Her husband and the police tried to save her, but she succumbed to her injuries. And she died right there in the foyer of her home.
Yeah.
Marianne and Dawn had no enemies. They didn't have any problems with anybody. And of course, Dawn was ruled out almost immediately.
Right.
So where we left off is North Richland Hills is where this took place. And that police department received a tip which promised to be the most promising to date, the most viable to date.
Okay.
So a 34-year-old woman who lived in a cul-de-sac a block away.
Yeah.
Which the next street over.
Same house number, right?
Yes.
Yep.
In that park, that was called Park Brook Court.
Mm-hmm.
Her home looked very similar to Marianne's. They had the same brick color and the exact same house number.
Right.
It was just a different street. But again, the woman lived a block over. She reported to police that she was the likely target of that person. She was the intended target of that murder.
Okay, why?
So let's get into why. And why we think that this is probably what happened. It makes the most sense.
Okay.
So that particular woman was going through a very, very contentious, terrible, hostile divorce from her husband.
She thought it was her husband sending somebody to kill her? That is contentious.
Well, I mean, it was contentious. It was contentious for a lot of reasons before this. So she stayed in their home, and back then that home, and I think you looked at pictures, homes in that area. This particular home was worth about $400,000.
Okay,
which today would be what? Do you think?
Way more.
Yeah.
Well, we looked. I think in a current house on that street was in the 800s. So 800s and up. Okay.
Yeah, and beautiful home. But so she stayed in the home in Park Brook Court, which with her children. The couple also owned a trucking company that was worth a lot of money, about $13,000 a month.
Good
bring
night.
home.
Back
you know.
then.
Back then, yeah. So according to sources, he told his soon-to-be ex that he would run the company into the ground before he'd let her get her share of it.
Ow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a solid choice, bud.
And probably the most hostile part, contentious part of this divorce was the custody of the children.
Oh, okay.
And that's always, from my experience working in courtrooms, you see the most fights, the most hostility, the most devastating consequences from divorces, not criminals,
yeah.
believe it or not. And they had 2 sons, ages 3 and 7 at the time.
Okay.
Again, that was probably the most problematic between the two. Like,
Was there like a history of domestic violence or anything? Because that, I'm sorry.
You're reading my
I'm
mind.
getting ahead of it
No,
again.
no, that's the very
'Cause
next
I'm like, that's
thing.
a huge jump to like, I think my husband tried to kill me.
So both parties claimed violence, alleged violence against each other in the marriage, especially during the divorce. Protective orders were filed by both parties.
Oh my God.
Alleging violence and by each other.
Okay.
So she had said
Who filed first?
that I'm not sure.
Okay.
So she said that her soon-to-be ex stated to anyone who helped his soon-to-be ex would not live. And then at one point gestured the throat cutting and pointed to her.
So he was like, if you help her, you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to slit your throat later.
She believed strongly that the bullet that killed Marianne, the bullets that killed Marianne were intended for her.
So, wow. Okay. We should also do a dumb criminal segment. Wrong.
Well, and I mean,
wrong house, wrong person.
You know, we didn't have the Google Maps, that on your phones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were cell phones, obviously, then.
No, we had the Thomas guide.
Huh?
I said we had the Thomas guide.
Yeah. Well,
That was
yeah.
much
We
more
had the
accurate,
ones
actually.
you bought separately and then you printed
MapQuest.
Yeah. So my
Yeah.
guess is in this case that it was a description.
Mm-hmm.
Go to this street. This is what the house looks like. Here's the house number. And I think that the guy got it wrong.
Yeah. I mean, you get what you pay for.
And that's basically they both lived on a cul-de-sac. They both lived a street apart, similar brick color of homes, similar homes. And, those neighborhoods usually had pretty
cookie cutter.
Yeah, pretty cookie cutter homes.
Mm-hmm.
So, you had large amounts of money that were at stake, which is always an issue. And I will say that in the divorces that I've seen in the courts that I've worked, the richer, the worse and more hostile divorces.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Greed comes into play.
I'm
I totally believe that.
You've got child custody. It was, fighting, violence. So, I think and so do the police think that this was a murder for hire that went wrong.
Wow.
So, who is this man, this business owner? He is a 45-year-old Dennis Michael Taylor.
Okay.
And he was the owner of a trucking company, and he employed a man named Vincent Lane, and both became fast suspects.
Huh.
For after this lead.
Sure. So she calls in, says, I think my husband did it. And the police are like, we think his buddy Vincent Lane might have helped him.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they came to that, but, you
Okay.
know, I mean, it's just probably,
I'm sure he's
looking
got a
at the
history of
evidence
something.
and, whatever.
Okay.
Neither of them have a criminal history.
Oh, just kidding.
So, but the police,
That's a joke.
but after interview, the police were like, this is not the whole story here. Something's up.
Okay.
You can have it, and you believe me, interviewing criminals as much as I have, I know when they're lying. You just become so in tune with.
You're like a human lie detector.
You can see their body movements, their gestures, what they say, how they say it,
Mm-hmm.
and so the police are really good at that.
Mm-hmm.
And, they just weren't telling the whole story.
So after the interview, they're like, no, buddy.
Yeah.
This is on you somehow.
Yeah. And police eventually released their names to the public in hopes of generating leads. Because as I've said throughout probably almost every episode, somebody knows something.
Right. Somebody knows something. Somebody heard something.
Right. And they made it clear that Marianne's murder was just a mistaken identity, but not a random one. Meaning it was intended for somebody else.
Right. Not completely out of
the
blue.
It wasn't strangers knocking on people's door shooting.
Right. So it wasn't the door knock that they thought it was, the initiation or whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So about a month after this lead came in, the gun was found.
Oh, yay. Oh, yeah.
I mentioned that.
You said that it was, okay.
It was found about 8 miles from the crime scene.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, police traced the owners back as far as the 80s, and, none had any sort of relation or connection to Marianne Wilkinson or Dawn or anybody in.
What about Trucker Dude?
No. They just.
Nobody involved. No suspects.
Right.
No. Okay. No connection.
As far as I know, if it was related to Taylor or Lane, police didn't really release that.
Okay. Keeping it close. Okay.
Yeah, like they do. They keep a lot of stuff close to the chest, so they can't release everything.
Right.
There weren't any prints on it.
Oh.
At the time, DNA, everything,
not a thing.
It was, but the technology's gotten so much better today,
right.
And I'll explain. So although there were no prints on the gun that they could lift themselves, they did learn about a new fingerprint procedure that was developed by Dr. Bond.
Okay.
And he was in England. So detectives took the revolver.
Was his first name James?
No.
Okay, they took the revolver. Sorry.
And there were casings found on the scene, bullet casings.
Okay.
To England for this procedure.
Oh.
So this technique allows scientists to detect fingerprints on spent bullets and shell casings, even when the print has been wiped off.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Even when it's smeary. That's weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it detects just any bit of corrosion, minute, you can't even see it. Minute corrosion, just teeny tiny corrosion of the metal caused by sweat.
Huh.
And that corrodes the metal in the shape of a fingerprint.
That's tiny.
Yeah. So it's the sweat pattern of the original fingerprint that was deposited that they can detect. So I'm not a scientist. This is just what I got from reading how they do it. I specifically looked up this procedure. So,
okay.
But again, the corrosion is so small, it's just undetectable, when you're trying to lift the print, a normal way of lifting prints.
Mm-hmm.
So this procedure can find that.
Very cool. Did it?
It did.
Ooh. Okay.
So, scientists can see this by dusting the metal with a fine black powder that adheres to the corroded areas, allowing them to see the fingerprint. So, according to Dr. Bond, this technique won't work. However, if the person has just washed their hands or put on gloves prior to loading the gun.
Well, yeah, because if they're not sweaty,
sense.
You're not getting sweat on it. Yeah. I don't sweat when I load.
I know.
I'm pretty chill, but I'm also not getting ready to go
murder people,
hurt anybody. So
yeah.
I'm probably pretty relaxed.
So 4 shell casings were collected at the crime scene along with the gun, and they were analyzed. So this is a good procedure that does hold promise in a lot of these cases, but because the theory is that most criminals aren't thinking when they're loading the gun. It's heat of the moment, it's fast. When handling these bullets, they may try to wipe them down, but they're not realizing that you're not always going to wipe everything down. So
use gloves.
Well, we don't tell them what to do.
I mean, if they didn't figure that out, then we definitely didn't need a dumb criminal segment.
But they did get a fingerprint. I'm not sure if it was a full or a partial, and they did run it through the national databases, but nothing was in there. And if you think about it, the two main suspects, persons of interest, have no criminal history. Their prints aren't going to be in the database. Dumb. And I think, and if they compared it to them specifically,
what about
they didn't release any of those results.
So they found a fingerprint, but we don't know what came of that.
Of course, yes.
Awesome.
Obviously, it wasn't enough to make an arrest, which usually, you know, I mean, you want a little bit more than a partial print on a casing.
But did they, except that's weird if the owners have no connection to anybody, but then like Taylor or Vince Lane or whoever had their fingerprint on a casing, I'd be like, that's weird.
Yeah.
But not enough to make an arrest. So
if it was, I
that
don't
even
know.
was a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I don't know. In 2019, it was announced that a DNA profile was obtained. I'm not sure if it was from the doorbell, from the casings, from the gun. I'm not sure where it came from.
Okay.
And it was run through, databases just like, CODIS and, the FBI databases, national and state databases.
Okay.
And again, I'm not sure. I don't remember if we took in probation, if we took DNA then. But if somebody's convicted of a felony, or even a deferred, even if they're not convicted and they're put on probation, their sentence is suspended, we take DNA samples, even if they're probation, and we send it off to DPS. So
like little cheeky swabs?
It's a cheek swab, yeah. And so, but again, if they're not, criminals in any way and had no criminal history, they're not going to have had their DNA in the databases. So, I asked Terry Wilkinson, which is the daughter-in-law, if the police had ran the DNA through any of the genetic databases like Ancestry or 23andMe, which matches distant relatives that are in that system. Says, hey, we got a match, uncles, cousins, aunt, whatever.
Right.
Whatever.
Y'all have the same great-great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
There you go, your family.
And then what happens at that point is it gets narrowed down, and, you can get, and many of these cold cases have been solved with this new technology. This technology is only a few years old, such as the Golden State Killer. That's how he was found. So she wasn't sure if they've done that, and it's an expensive thing.
Okay.
So, police don't have unlimited funds.
Right.
You would think that they could submit this stuff and it's free. It's not, to hire these companies to do that.
Right.
It's an expensive process, and hopefully the police are going this route. Again, I don't know what type of DNA it is, if it's just a small amount and they can't afford to,
ship it off.
Sometimes when you have a DNA sample and it's not enough, back then anyway, you can't use it all just to go test.
Right. Just to willy-nilly on this and yeah.
Yeah, but it sounds like that they do have a profile, so hopefully they're going this route. I don't know.
Okay.
The police aren't going to give me any info. And she wasn't for sure. She, anyway. So, as police are working this case, not all was released, including a third suspect.
Oh.
Okay. So we have a third person of interest that was linked in to this Lane and Taylor. His name was Willie Bowley.
So he was connected to the trucking company, and
I don't know how. I don't know how that they connected it. I can't remember. But anyway, so he was from Palestine, Texas, which isn't too far from where we are.
Nope.
And he did have a criminal history, but police had been looking for him to question him about the case, and he was by, and I'll explain why he was gone.
What did you say he was by?
Bye.
Oh, goodbye.
Bye.
I was like,
sorry.
What?
Sorry. He was gone, but
he was out.
I'll explain why.
Okay.
Because he was no longer in Texas.
Because he was in jail. No, I'm just kidding.
No, he was not in jail, which would have been a good thing. They would have known that.
Okay.
He was in jail and he bailed out, but I'll explain that. So on December 22nd, 2013, a 911 call came into the Oklahoma City dispatch.
Okay.
A woman in the northeast part of the city called, stating that her boyfriend was beating her and she shot him.
Oh, good for you, lady.
Well,
Maybe.
not really.
Oh, well.
When police arrived on the scene, the woman had already removed the magazine from the gun, set the gun down, and was waiting for the police outside.
I like her. You're saying no? Okay, go
Well, I mean, no, it's good and bad, but
Okay.
By the time the police had got there, it was Boley,
ahead.
who was shot and killed.
Oh, he was dead.
He was dead.
Oh, that's not good for this case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Due to the woman having protected herself from the beating, she was not charged. As of that, I could find that she was not charged.
Good.
She wasn't charged immediately at the time, and I can't find where she was ever charged with anything. But let me explain why he was sort of on the lam. He was no stranger to beating women.
Oh, fun.
He in fact enjoyed that.
Is it horrible that I say I'm glad he got shot then?
No,
Good job, lady.
but
Again.
it is bad for this case because the police really wanted to question him.
Yeah, now we can't ask him questions. Okay.
Right. While he was in Texas, he had a wife, and they lived near the Palestine area outside,
Mhm.
and they began to argue over finances. The argument became physical. He began choking her and
Jeez.
threw her to the ground while punching her and hitting her. He also hit her not only with his fists, but a PVC pipe and a plastic flashlight.
Good gracious.
He was kicking her. She eventually escaped and had some pretty severe injuries,
Mm-hmm.
but did recover.
Okay. Good. Good.
Willie was arrested, but bailed out and skipped bail.
Okay.
So not only was, that county looking for him, but so was North Richland Hills.
Okay.
So, but he was sought by the police just for that incident and, of course, for the Marianne case.
Yeah. So they were trying to question him about that, but then he ran.
Yeah. It's believed he was the trigger man. And
Okay.
that he was hired by Taylor. I don't know that he was working at the company. It could be typically what happens in these cases. They're not going to hire somebody that works in the company. They'll hire somebody. Oh, I have a friend who knows somebody who knows somebody.
Right.
That's
Maybe that was the connection, like Taylor and Vincent Lane, like knew where to go to get Willie. Was that his name?
Willie. Yeah.
Willie. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
We don't know. We don't know. So, and so he was named a person of interest, obviously, because, the police had enough evidence and wanting to talk to him just to see what he said. When Marianne's family got word of this, of course, they were like shocked and saddened because he can't be questioned now.
right.
So,
And if he was hired, then whoever hired him is kind of off the hook and they can just
well,
be quiet.
if they can get more evidence, he wouldn't be off the hook. But as far as Willie ever saying, yeah, he hired me.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah. And you definitely want to get the person who hired. That's the main person who's at fault here.
absolutely.
So, talking with Terry, the family still feels the pain of this.
Oh,
And this has
yeah.
been almost 17 years.
Yeah, I don't think that goes away.
Yeah, Marianne was loving, feisty, sweet, generous. She told a story of that her son Mike was in grad school, I believe, and she, I guess, somehow went to their house and hid money in toilet paper. And it was like, she says mostly like when you unrolled, there would be another bill.
Oh, that's funny.
Isn't that cute?
Okay.
Just to kind of help them out and be fun. So,
Cute.
yeah. So she was very generous and loved helping her family. Was just a family person, a crafts person. And, they just miss her so much.
Oh, yeah.
They continue to honor her even after all these years. They, honor her at Christmas and birthdays and so forth. And today she would have had 3 great-granddaughters and 1 great-grandson. She said that the family is just not the same anymore. Dawn, who is still alive, moved away, as did Melanie, the sister, the daughter.
Okay. So really it's just Mike and Terry who are still...
Well, no, I mean, they want
Nearby.
justice too, but nearby. I'm
Yeah.
not sure where they live.
Okay.
I didn't ask that. But Terry did say that the North Richland Hills police have been kind, respectful, very helpful. They always
Good.
meet with her when asked, and, never, you hear horror stories about how police, I was just reading one today where police, drop the ball and
Yeah.
don't answer calls and aren't respectful and don't have that victim, passion to help and get things solved as much. But, they did say that North Richland Hills, especially Detective Eric Whitlock, who they wanted to especially name and has been dedicated to solving this case even today.
That's sweet.
Yeah. And it's good to see a police department really wanting to do that.
Yeah. Well, it's that is, and it's unusual. I know, I think I've told you this before. That's one of the reasons my nephew's like, I hate those cases, listening to cold cases, because I get so mad at, the agency that dropped the ball. And this one, that's not what it is.
It doesn't sound like it. It just sounds.
There aren't really a lot of dots to connect.
Right.
And then if he's dead and might have been that moment, that's unfortunate. But
and
somebody knows.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. And I've always said that, especially if alcohol is involved or drugs are involved, people like yapping when they're drunk.
Oh, yeah.
You could overhear something in a bar, have seen something, have heard something. I don't know. I'm sure police questioned the girlfriends and wives of Willie. And, in my mind thinking, okay, and this, I don't know what came of that, those questioning, but in my mind, somebody's beating you. They'll say stuff like, I did it once, I'll do it again. Like, I'll kill you. I've done it before. I'll kill you, as a threat and to scare and intimidation.
Okay.
But, one thing that they say they just want that no tip is too small.
Okay.
And just if anybody knows anything to call.
Any piece of information at all.
Right.
Okay.
And, they made an interesting point saying that, yes, Marianne missed out on all this life in these last 17 years, but the family missed out on having Marianne.
Oh, yeah.
And, what Marianne taught her, from what I kind of surmised from talking to the family in my research, is Marianne taught her friends and family unconditional love, that money, education status can't give that. Just her legacy of unconditional love is what they miss the most.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, she must have been the glue. And I think, when stuff like this happens, you do see families kind of splinter through grief anyway, but you can always tell when she must have been just like the glue that held them all together.
Yeah.
So that's so hard.
Yeah. And they still, they just want it solved, just because, it's not going to bring Marianne back, but it's going to put a piece of that puzzle away. It's not going to bring her back. It's not going to be closure, if you believe in that or not. But the fact that these people are outliving their life and Marianne can't.
That's some bull.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's just that we just need any kind of tip, just anything.
So who's we and who do we tell?
So any and all tips are needed. You can remain anonymous.
Yep.
But if you've heard anything, seen anything, know anything, call the North Richland Hills Police at 817-427-7017.
Okay.
You can call Crimestoppers at 800-346-3243. There is a reward. I believe it's $3,000. I was thinking it was way more than that, but I could be wrong. Also, the Texas Rangers have this case too, so you can contact them. But crimes,
cold case site.
Okay. And you can remain anonymous, especially calling Crimestoppers, and still get a reward.
Yep.
But anybody knows anything, please call. We need to get this one solved.
Yeah.
We need to get them all solved.
Yes.
That we've talked about, but we especially have to do this. And so if anybody out there knows anything, or anybody that knows anything, North Richland Hills Police, again, that number is 817-427-7017.
And is the detective Eric that you mentioned,
Whitlock.
Is he still there?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And they can contact him. They're kind, nice. They're not going to make you feel, terrible.
Right.
Or whatever,
Sounds like they'll be grateful for some help, some
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah, and I do also want to say there is a Facebook page where you can learn more about Marianne. It's called Justice for Marianne
Okay.
on Facebook, and that's
Okay.
how I got in touch with Terry. So if everybody will go, please follow that. You can see a whole bunch of pictures of her, and her family runs that page, and they talk about honoring her and everything.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll link all of this on our social and see what we can do.
And
We'll
I
get
do
Crime Stoppers on there, all the good things.
Right. And I do want to thank Terry Wilkinson for meeting with me and who took the time to speak with me. Even, we're a small, fairly new podcast, but she still, was glad to get the word out. And
I'll
so
bet.
let's get this case solved for her, for
Yes.
Marianne.
Let's do it. If you know anything, please reach out to the numbers that Christina read off. We will link them all on our social. And let's get this one solved.
Please. Let's get all of them solved. But,
we're here for all of them.
yes, go get you some reward money and let's go. Let's get this one solved.
All
for
right.
Sure.
Well, thank you so much. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Ugh, makes me so mad.
I know.
But that was a great share. And there's got to be an answer out there. And 17 years is a long time ago, but it's not that long.
Right.
So if you have any tips, please share. And thank you so much for listening to Silent Witness.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production. Are you a podcaster? Let's talk podcast hosting. Are you tired of your current podcast host? Need real support in a community that gets it? At Rogue Media Network, we offer top-tier podcast hosting services to help you thrive. From hosting and distribution to dedicated support, we've got you covered. Starting as low as $25 a month. Join our community of passionate podcasters today. Contact us at hello@roguemedianetwork.com.